Hello, hello. And yes, I am back here live for another fabulous Facebook and YouTube live today. Let me just silence the notifications on the phone so no one disturbs us today. Hello, everyone. It is so wonderful to see you all today. My name is Michael Smith, the National Education Manager of Janome Canada. And yes, I'm coming to you live from my palatial estate here in Collingwood, Ontario, Canada. I'm about 2 hours north of Toronto. And I am here live on the Janome Canada Facebook page, Janome America Facebook as Janome Sewing Machines Facebook page, Janome America YouTube, and Janome Canada YouTube. So regardless of your platforms, any chance to share the Janome love. So yes, and what are we going to talk about today? Well, again, more of our presser foot know-how. It's really amazing. Janome, regardless of what machine we have, Janome machines come already with so many presser feet, but there's always more available from your Janome dealer. And each of those feet have a specific purpose. It's great if we can use them for other things, though, get more mileage out of them. But all of these presser feet help us do everything, faster, easier, more professional results. So I've got a couple of little tips and tricks to share with you today, specifically when we're talking about sewing with knits. And yes, a lot of people think of sergers right away with sewing with knits. Well, we can use our sewing machines to sew those knit fabrics as well. So let me just flip around here. So there we go. Get that back camera going on. And it's already snowing here in Canada. So I always say, regardless of the weather, let's just stay inside and sew. And yes, today I'm sewing once again on my fabulous Janome Memory Craft 1000. It is a combo machine, so sewing and embroidery. So it's wonderful that we can do double duty, especially if you're fighting for space. We can do, again, all of this decorative stitching here was done built into the machine. This was actually with the circular sewing attachment, which is another fabulous accessory for a number of Janome machines. And the embroidery here, Memory Craft 1000, built into the machine. It's fabulous. So yes, presser feet, specifically when we're talking about sewing with knits. Well, with knit fabric, we need to, yes, compensate for the stretch that is in the knit. Now, this is a cotton polyester knit, kind of like a t-shirt knit, but, we have some of those really slinky knits with, spandex in them, lycra in them. And there's so many things that we can do here on the sewing machine to mimic what we see in commercial ready-to-wear. But the presser foot makes all the difference, the stitch and the presser foot, really. So the foot I'm going to talk about today is this unusual looking one. It's called the Tricot Foot. And this big bar comes up here. It is a snap-on foot, as you'll see right there. And this big bar comes up over the needle clamp screw here. And this is what's going to activate these little, if you see, there's a little blue, oh, there we can see. There's a little blue rubber grip here on the foot. And this bar that goes over the needle clamp screw is going to activate that. Do you see that come up, that little bar? There we go. That little bar comes up. And this is basically helping to feed the fabric. So it's very similar to an even feed foot or the dual feed foot, AccuFeed flex foot. It's very similar to that. Now this foot, again, tricot is a type of knit. So again, for knit fabrics, great, very delicate fabrics, great. Because of this upper feeding little grip there, it works so well. Now this foot originally is intended for 5mm machines. Now this is my very first Janome machine. Oh, I forget the model number of it. It's limited edition. It's like 3262 or something like that. I do have the instruction manual, so I could look. But this is actually, it looks very similar to our HD 1000. This is the early prototype of the HD 1000. The HD 1000, though, has a needle threader, which my machine does not. And we now, new machines have LED lights. I have the old-fashioned light bulb in here. But this machine is still going strong. I bought this 34 years ago. Amazing. Now, mechanical machines, these are the knobs that we turn to select the various stitches here. So all the mechanical machines are 5 millimeters. So this Tricot Foot was originally intended for the 5 millimeter mechanical machines here. Now, these are more, again, basic, like entry-level machines. So therefore, they already come with a number of presser feet, but not a whole lot. So this Tricot Foot is an optional specialty presser foot. And again, it works very similarly to the way the even feed foot works, but it's a little smaller profile, would be lesser expensive as well. So you can double check prices and everything from your Janome dealer. But I found this worked out really well. If I snap off my A foot here of my Memory Craft 1000 here, this is a 7 millimeter machine, and we're talking about the width, the opening here in the needle plate. Again, this foot is originally for 5 millimeter machines, but this bar will snap onto the foot holder here of my Memory Craft 1000. It is a 7 millimeter machine, but you'll see, boom, that fit on very beautifully. And most importantly, I have that bar, that metal bar is over the needle clamp screw. That's what's going to activate that little blue rubbery grip. So even though this foot is intended for 5 millimeter machines, it's fitting on my 1000 very beautifully. So the next part of our equation is needles. Now, when we are sewing knit fabrics, our Janome Blue Tip size 11 needle has a slight ballpoint, slightly rounded tip at the end. So this is a good choice for most knit fabrics. But, you know, Janome also has, available from your Janome dealer, we have specific ballpoint needles. This is size 11, so slightly thinner shaft, slightly smaller eye for more delicate fabrics. The ballpoint size 14 needle, slightly bigger needle, with a larger eye. We can use thicker threads. It'll go through, you know, thicker layers. But these are ballpoint, so they have a slightly rounded tip, so they don't run the knit. It actually will go through the fibers of the knit fabric. It'll go in between, like the weave of the knit, so it won't run the knit. If you think of the, you know, ladies when they used to wear the nylon stockings, and you know, when you'd get a run in them, you know, then they're garbage. So we don't want to run our knit fabric. So the ballpoint will definitely help. Now, depending on your knit, again, this is a cotton polyester knit, but the knits with the spandex and lycra, your needles will really do, they say, stretch on them. These are ballpoint needles, but again, Janome has stretch needles as well that are really good for those very synthetic knits. So again, with this Tricot Foot, because of that special rubbery grip, we need to keep the foot level. So I always like to just tip down that toe when I'm going to drop my presser foot here. And then the stitch. Now I could sew with a regular straight stitch. For knit fabrics, though, we don't want to pop this seam. So I generally, with knit fabrics, will lengthen my stitch. This is a 3.0. So that will help us avoid, again, popping those stitches. So there, I am good to go. And then we let the machine do the work. I'm setting this up. I have a 5/8 inch line on my needle plate. On my bobbin cover here, there's a little tick mark there at the front of my needle plate. So I'm setting this at 5/8 of an inch if this is a commercial pattern. And again, you see how easy this is. I'm letting the foot do the work to feed in my fabric. And this way, because of that foot, how it's coming up and down to help feed the layers on top, when I cut my threads here, you will see, boom, my bottom layer is the same length as my top layer. My top layer did not creep. Look at that. My top layer did not creep longer than my bottom layer. That typically will happen with knits, as one layer will creep longer than the other. But no, that Tricot Foot feeds them in just beautifully. So that is with a regular straight stitch. Again, opened up, looks beautiful, nice and strong. And again, I lengthen that stitch so we don't worry about it popping as we move and flex. But another stitch that we can use, depending on your machine, again, even with this Tricot Foot, it's in the utility categories of your machines. If you have this little stitch, I call it a lightning zigzag. You'll see it's not a typical zigzag that goes left to right, left to right. This zigzag goes more like up and down. It goes up and down. So it forms more like a straight line, but there is a slight zigzag to it. The M stands for middle needle position. The L stands for left needle position. I'll go back to use middle needle position here. And what that lightning zigzag does is, again, gives us a little more stretch. So especially as we're getting around armholes and we're getting to, like on leggings, then this is really good to use. Again, I like to keep my foot down, and then I walk my balance wheel just to lower the foot, or just to lower the needle, and then I get this going. Just give it a little push to get going. And then we're going to let the machine do the work. So this lightning zigzag is a really good stitch to use because, again, it has that built-in stretch to it by doing that little zigzag. But because that zigzag is more in a straight line, when I finish the seam, you will see that it looks like a regular straight stitch. And here, I won't bother finishing just to speed this along because I have lots to share. Look at how gorgeous that is. So do you see that little lightning zigzag? Front and back, no problem. But when I open this up, it looks like a regular straight stitch. You would never know, but it has more strength and especially more stretch as we get around neck holes and armholes, and again around knees for leggings. That works really, really well. Now we could use a regular zigzag as well, which again would be M for middle needle position or R for right needle position, and that would do our traditional zigzag, wider zigzag, which I've done here. So yes, we could also use a zigzag stitch for knit fabrics, and again that also has some built-in stretch. So whatever stitch that you have built into your machine, you too can do sewing with knits. And specifically, I really loved that I found out, again, this foot is originally intended for 5mm machines, our mechanical machines here. But I found it worked just beautifully on my Memory Craft 1000. Now, where we can get more information about all of our Janome Presser Feet, the Janome accessories catalog, you can get this on janome.ca, janome.com, printed out if you wish. There is the Tricot Foot. Now, the Presser Foot, the accessories catalog, they have all the parts numbers here, and they have this little key. For example, this is compatible, it says G. This Tricot Foot is compatible with G machines, and that corresponds with the category of machines up at the front of the manual. And they say G, there we are, front loading oscillating machines. Again, they're typically the mechanical machines, like my early predecessor of the HD1000 here. But again, I found overall it worked out very well in this Memorycraft 1000, which is more like a, again, even an E machine, the E category, it worked very well for that too. Or even the D category there is 5 to 7 millimeter computerized machines, and it worked just beautifully. So you experiment. But yes, the Janome Accessories Catalog is a great resource. Now, speaking of Janome.com and Janome.ca, especially this fabulous Janome needle guide is on Janome.ca. If you click the support tab, and then you will find this needle guide. There's the various needles, again, like those blue tip size 11 needles, or here we get down into the ballpoint needles. And then there are, again, stretch needles. There are, leather needles, denim needles, all of this. Needles for your serge or your cover hem machine. All of those are explained here in this Janome needle guide. So great resource. So this Tricot Foot is one option to deal with sewing with knits. And then the other option is a number of our machines come with, again, this C foot. And it has this little brush on the side, and you'll see these two stitch fingers is what these are right here. Now these mimic the stitch fingers on a serger. So the C foot is the Overcast foot. Now Janome uses the terms Overcast and Overedge interchangeably, but typically the C foot is the Overcast foot. And then does your machine have a similar corresponding stitch, which there are so many that are built into the machine. Oh, before I go on too far, this stitch here with these 3 lines, it's a zigzag stitch. This is a triple stretch stitch, often known as a tricot stitch. And this you see there in my yellow. So it is a couple of stitches instead of one big long zigzag stitch. It's stitch, 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 and then it goes then stitch, stitch, stitch to the left and stitch, stitch, stitch to the right. So this is another great stitch. It's called the triple stretch stitch, but it is also known as the tricot stitch. Look at that I can really stretch and really stretch. So no problem. A lot of strain, no problem. A very secure seam. So again, great for underwear, lingerie. Your choice is yours. But yes, the C foot then, as I go on, boom, as the wonderful thing with a machine like the Memorycraft 1000 here, because of the LCD screen here, it tells me automatically when I select this stitch, oh, I should use the C foot with that. And this is a wonderful stitch, this Overcast stitch, in that it does the seam here with the straight line, and then it does this zigzag stitch to help secure and finish that raw edge. Like, look how beautiful that looks, and so simple. And again, when I open it up, you'd never know. It just looks like a normal seam, but it's nice and strong. And look how beautifully finished that is. So it looks very similar to the kind of stitch that our sergers do. And how that is possible, I love the engineering of all these Janome Presser Feet. And how they have done that is, again, by having those stitch fingers, they help support the stitches as they go off the fabric here. So I always like to turn my balance wheel to get started. Always turn the balance wheel towards you. And again, we're just going to let the foot do the work. We're letting the machine do the work. Now, if ever you get a little bit, as I am, a little bit of distortion here, simply raise your foot and then you tuck that under, and there we go. And it works so well. And the needle, maybe you can see if I sew slowly, I can turn my speed control slider down a little slower. That's another great feature of this machine, especially for beginner sewer, or depending on what your project is, you want to sew a little slowly. Do you see then the needle goes into the little brush here off to the right, so it goes off the edge of the fabric. It is overcasting the edge. And again, I'll just cut that off for the sake of time. Now, very importantly, when you're using this foot, especially, you pull your fabric off to the back. You need to pull it off the stitch fingers. There we go. Isn't that beautiful? All beautifully done. And then again, boom, nice and secure on the front side, on the good side. Like, it works so well. So that is the C foot, and comes with a number of machines. Now, also what comes with a number of machines, including Memorycraft 1000, it came with both of these. The M foot is the Overedge foot. But again, Janome will sometimes use the Overcast term for the M, but it's the Overedge foot. And there, do you see those two stitch fingers, just like a serger? And then there is a third metal wire here instead of the little brush. So this foot is technically the, again, Overedge foot. And there is a stitch. Again, there's a stitch for everything. So when we go along and say, oh, well, oh, I can use, there we go. The M stands for the M, the presser foot there. Now, I did A to Z with Janome series that's on the Janome Canada YouTube channel, and I go over all of these presser feet to demo. So you'll see that this stitch does that straight line. It does the over edge, and it makes it super, super secure. So we can sew the garment, instead of sewing the seam and finishing the seam allowances, separately, we can sew, we can construct the garment from scratch. And again, by having the engineering of this foot, again, by having those stitch fingers, those metal stitch fingers, they are supporting the stitch as it goes off the edge of the fabric, and it is overcasting the edge of the foot, or the over edge of the raw edge of the fabric. So it really is quite amazing. I'll turn my speed back up. I generally, this is how I sew. But yes, so finishes this off beautifully. Time is always my enemy. You'll see, boom, how beautiful is that? It finishes it off very beautifully there. So again, then I open it up and it looks like a regular seam, nice and strong. I can pull it apart, but it really looks good. So beautifully finished. Now you can also, so here you do yourself, again, these little samples like this, and then you could write on the sample, get a little piece of tape and write on the sample that you use the C foot, the stitch number. In this case, it was stitch number 11 on my Memorycraft 1000 here. So you could write, if you adjust the width and the length of this, there's so many things that you can customize exactly as you need it. So you do yourself these little samples. Again, earlier from my little zigzag sample, or my little triple stretch stitch here, my tricot stitch, that you do just these little samples and you label what it is, and then you put this in a binder with page protectors, and it has your own little sewing reference binder. So good. Now, another option that we could do with knits and any fabrics really is sew the seam. And this stitch number 12, do you see, this is particularly good for knits. It does the straight stitch, and then it does this diagonal stitch off to the side. So again, we could use this stitch to either construct the garment, or in this case, I sewed a regular stitch. There's that lightning zigzag. I sewed the seam, but I used this stitch. It's utility stitch number 12 here on my Memorycraft 1000, that it's a knit stitch. And I used this just to finish the seam allowances. Now, knit fabrics are great because they don't ravel. So technically, I don't need to finish the seam allowance, but it does make it more durable. It certainly does make it look much more professionally finished. It looks really quite beautiful. So that is an option as well that you can use. Again, these stitches can be for constructing your garment, but they could also be just as again, it's stitch number 15, stitch number 14 here. These can all be used just to finish the raw edges of the fabric, not just sewing them, or not just, constructing them, sewing them together. So there is lots of options that we have of sewing with knits. And oops, I'm all tethered. Ooh, then you're getting a view of my messy sewing room as I'm trying to get untethered here. I'll have to unplug. There we go. Just so I could move my camera over here to, let's wake up my computer. When we want to go to, again, janome.com or janome.ca, and we can go to the website. And when we go to janome.com or janome.ca, and we go to the accessories tab, and what are we looking for? We can say we want more information of the Tricot Foot. Enter. So there we'll call up. It just takes a few minutes to, or less than a few minutes to see, but we've got lots of information there on the websites. So when I click, boom, there is a wonderful close-up view of the foot. And then again, it originally says for 5mm front load machines, but it actually worked beautifully on my Memorycraft 1000. So there is the compatible machines that Janome says it was originally intended for, but sometimes you can use these feet on other machines or for other purposes, but you do need a bit of caution, though, that's for sure. As far as your stitch width goes, you wouldn't want to do a stitch too wide. Zigzag in particular, you wouldn't want to do a too wide of a zigzag because then you could break the needle on the foot. But this bulletin here, Janome Bulletin, is from the Janome Global site. That is another great resource of all things Janome. You type in your browser, Janome Global site, and there's a tab that says Bulletins. So here is there the part number, and it says preventing puckering and fabric slippage on stretch fabrics. And here they're giving you some ideas here and there. They talk about that tricot stitch, that triple stretch stitch there, and how to, again, set up the foot on the machine to make sure that big bar, that big lever, is over the needle clamp screw. So that is the Janome Bulletin, and that is on the Janome Global site, or again, on the accessories tab here on janome.com and janome.ca. There was a little learn more link that I clicked, and there's for more information. So much we can do. And why I mentioned that, well, it's always good for good information, but also why I thought this would be a timely presentation is, there I am, in Janome Canada, we have just come out with, on our Inspire tab, this fabulous bra making primer, and our artisan there she is, maker Caitlin from All Bodies Custom Lingerie is going to be doing a Janome Canada Facebook Live. I think next week or in 2 weeks. It's coming up. Check our Janome Canada social media, and you will see Caitlin's going to be doing a live all about this bra making primer. So of course, with lingerie, we're dealing with really slinky, typically slinky knit fabrics. Could be this cotton knit, though, certainly if you're doing a sports bra, whichever. But dealing with those stretchy fabrics, now you know about the stitches, the needles, the presser feet. So when you hopefully tune in to Caitlin's upcoming Janome Canada Facebook Live, you'll already be more up to speed when she goes in how to work with your knit fabrics. And also double check our Janome Life blog. That is a great resource for all things Janome. Just type in sewing with knits, for example, and all related blogs about needles, presser feet, thread, all of that. Techniques will come up there. So all the resources that available at your fingertips. So thank you everyone so much for joining me. I hope you have a fabulous day.